everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Life and Tea Abroad. My name is Tato. Welcome if you are new here, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. You know, we talk about all things life, being an international student in Japan, what that is like. I do traveling, I read books, I talk about science and everything else in between. So if any of these topics sound interesting to you, please consider subscribing. Also share this content with somebody who you think might benefit from it. Today we're going to be talking about books, darling. We're talking about books. One of my favorite things in the world is to read books, to buy books, to look at books, to touch books. So if you have been a subscriber for a long time or have been watching my videos, you'll know that one of my things for this year, I would say it's like a New Year's resolution, is to basically read as much as I can from the books that I already own. To achieve that, I put myself on a book buying ban, so that I stop just buying books that end up just sitting on the bookshelf, never to be read, collecting dust and all that kind of jazz. So I set that up for myself as a challenge at the beginning of the year, and right now I felt like being the halfway mark of the year. Actually, at this point, I've actually exceeded the halfway mark of the year. So let's just see how I'm doing with the book ban. Am I still on a book ban? I mean, if you look at this shelf right here, it contains some of the books that you guys didn't see on my previous bookshelf. So did I fail? Have I failed on my own book ban challenge? Let's find out in today's video. Who do not know, the rules of this challenge were that I'm not allowed to purchase any new books for the entire year of 2023, which is ridiculous to me, because one of my favorite things to do ever is to literally just go on Amazon and purchase new books, or just go to a bookstore and just stare at them. So the fact that I couldn't buy them meant it's really hard for me to put myself under such pressure. The second rule is that I should read at least one book a month at the very least. For those of you who know, I'm a PhD student. A lot of my work already involves reading a lot of scientific journals, and so I'm not about to put myself under too much pressure to be reading 10 books, 20 books per month. That is not my job. I enjoy reading as a hobby, and so I just figured if I read one book a month at the very minimum, I would have read 12 books this year. And if I'm able to either remember the stories because the books were so entertaining, or if it's a practical book, if I were able to just implement some of the learnings I had from that book, that would be well and good for me. I just wanted to maintain a consistent momentum of book reading. Yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the challenge. I shouldn't buy books, and I should just read as much as I can from what I already have. Hey buddy, stop that. Mommy's filming a video. No? So to answer your very first question, did I fail at my book buying ban because I now have all these books? No, I did not fail. So there was a loophole in my challenge, which was that I didn't state that I couldn't borrow books. Yeah. Basically, I have been borrowing books from my friends and just kind of shopping their bookshelves for books that I already wanted, which are on my wish list or that I've heard people talk about. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so exciting, because on one hand, I'm already reading the books that I wanted to read anyway, but then I'm also saving money. And then I'm also saving space, because since the books don't belong to me, I get to return them once I've finished reading them, which is a big plus for me.
It's a win-win-win-win situation.
Like one of the things I said in the previous video, and don't worry, I'm going to link up the video below in the description box as well as in the cards above, so that you can watch it later on if you don't know which one I'm talking about. But one of the things I stated was that I want to maintain a small book collection, because my life is such that I'm always on the move. I don't know where my next steps are after living in Japan once I complete the degree. I don't know where I'm gonna go, but I don't want books to be the heavy thing that I now have to ship separately, because it's such a big, luggage.
Trying not to think about it.
Hey boy, the cat is kind of hanging around here, so I hope you don't mind. But yeah, the fact that I can return these books after I've read them is a big plus for me, because I don't want to hold on to too many physical books. I don't mind, honey, no, stop that. I don't mind owning, you know, like ebooks or Audible books, because then they're just in my phone and it's okay to just carry that around. Sorry, babe. All right, so to answer your question, no, I did not fail at my book ban. I have been reading the books on my bookshelf and I'm going to discuss them today. Without further ado, in order of how I read them, I guess. So actually, this book, It Ends With Us. This is a book, my first book by Colleen Hoover, and I got this in the US last year when we went for a conference. I bought it at the airport and I found the blurb to be really exciting. To be honest, I didn't know anything about Colleen Hoover at the time, but I just saw the blurb behind and I thought this would be exciting, an exciting book to just delve into. And then after reading this book, I started researching more about Colleen Hoover, and I found that there's a sequel to this book which is called It Starts With Us. I cannot buy that one. I've been trying to see if somebody's willing to swap with me. I haven't found that yet, but that's the next book that I want to read by Colleen Hoover. This was a wonderful novel that kind of talks about a lot of heavy topics. There's a lot of abusive relationships, but then there's a happy ending as well. It's about a girl who is trying to be a florist, and she has a past relationship with somebody called Atlas, and she meets someone else in the future, Ryle, and this is the story of how she navigates her new life with Ryle. And it kind of gives us the two time points, present and then like past, where she's navigating like her current self given what has happened in the past with Atlas, and you know, then things kind of take off from there. But this was such a wonderful book, and I'm including it in this kind of review because although I read it in the middle of December, I actually kind of finished it like December 31st, which since I haven't talked about it on the channel, I feel like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna include it in my 2023 book reviews because I feel like I want to encourage people to go and get it. Okay, so Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us. I'm not gonna be rating the books, I'm just gonna tell you if I liked it or not, and this was superb in my books. And then I read Ya Gyasi's Homegoing. Ya Gyasi is a author that was also new to me. I also got this in the US last year, but I actually read it this year. And one amazing thing about this book is that it's about a neuroscientist, and I'm a neuroscientist, and she is from Ghana, West Africa, and I'm from Africa too. Oh my gosh. It kind of follows the life of this lady and gives us glimpses into her reasons for pursuing neuroscience. And I'm so sorry guys if there was any like shaking in the video. I'm not quite sure, but my cat is kind of playing around and like tugging at cords and things, and I'm so sorry for that. But I have put him in my room now with some toys so I can finish filming this video. But yes, as I was saying, this one follows this girl. Her family life is very complicated. Her dad's in Ghana, her mom and her brother live with her in the US, but a lot happens within that whole family too, and just like their outlook on life is also deeply explored. There's a lot of talk about influence of religion in her scientific pursuits, but also in her mom's faith and her brother's circumstances as well. I don't want to talk too much in detail lest I give some spoilers. So I think that it's just an amazing book, very, for me, one of the most relatable books I've ever read, being that I'm a scientist who's also African but who's living in a non-African country. Like, I don't know, there's just something so relatable about this book. There are also some things that I felt like ended quickly or were resolved way too quick. So like the ending I felt like was a bit rushed for me. I don't know, it's not the ending that I foresaw. I felt like the ending was too simple. Let me put it that way. I felt like the ending of this book was too simple, but I really like the beginning and the end, and also the way it was written is quite nice too. So I do want to pick up Homegoing by this author, and yeah, you should read this too. It's not heavy on the science as well, so you don't have to be a scientist to understand what she was doing in the lab. There's not too much into that. It's just more so an auxiliary part of her life. I also read a book that has been on my TBR for a long time guys. Okay, so this is And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini. For those of you who do not know, Khaled Hosseini is my #1 all-time favorite author. Like, he writes a lot of historical fiction with sometimes subplots of romance. He focuses a lot on the Middle East, Iran, Afghanistan, these kinds of places, and I just find like his writing is so good. Khaled Hosseini is one of those authors that just will make you fall in love with the characters, and then he will rip your heart out, like he will rip it apart into shreds and somehow manage to like piece it back together in the most beautiful way. His use of language is so amazing, and like this book is around like almost 500, well, it's like 466 pages, which for me is kind of like on the long-ish side. Like, I typically read books that are like 300, 350, maybe 250, I don't know. Like, yeah, but this is like a little chunky boy for me, but I enjoyed it so much. And I've read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I've also read A Thousand Splendid Suns by him, and I have never been disappointed by this man's writing. I wish he knew me, because I want to meet him someday, because honestly he writes so well. He is my #1 favorite author in the world. In my eyes, he can do no wrong, and if you think he can, then don't talk to me. I realized that he has another book that I had never actually heard of called The Sea Prayer, and I'm not too sure when that came out, but I do want to have that book as soon as my book buying ban is over. That's one of the first books that I'm going to buy, because when it comes to Khaled Hosseini's books, I do want to get all of them, and I'm gonna display them beautifully in my shelf. These are my prized possessions, guys. So yeah, anyway, if you want a book that, this one talks about sibling love. Like, it's so beautiful. There's a brother and a sister, and they go through life differently because their circumstances change so quickly one time, and then you follow them like over many generations as they become adults and the things that they face in the worlds that they are, because they are separated at the end of the day. So it's just so beautiful seeing how their lives unravel before them, and just it's just so beautiful. Like, I feel like if I say more than that, I will be giving out spoilers, but essentially it explores the love between two siblings, and also explores a lot about like classism, you know, like middle class, lower class people, economically speaking, and the kind of situations they're faced with, which are so different. Like, what opportunities are presented to people who are richer versus opportunities presented to poorer people, and just how their lives can be so different. Even if a country goes, like for instance, if there's a war in a country, the impact on poor people versus like rich people can be so drastically different. So it explores those kinds of themes, and I love it, absolutely love it, because it's beautiful, and like I cried at various points of reading this book. Like, it's so good. I would definitely do a reread of this one. And then of course I read this is not a fiction, this is more like a satirical self-help book, if I can put it that way. It's called Surviving Your Stupid Decision to Go to Grad School, and this is by Adam Rubin, who also has a PhD in molecular biology. Yeah, he has a PhD in molecular biology, and he goes through what he thinks of grad school and things that grad students go through. Like, he has these funny pictures in the books about like just a grad student's life. Like, yeah, we all want free pizza. That's the best way to advertise any kind of event. If there's free food, we're gonna go. There's one picture that I'm looking for actually, where he talks about how there's like different pools in life, in school rather. So like, there's the big pool, and there's the small kiddie pool, and there's, you know, that graduate students are just adults who are too afraid to like jump into the big person pool. I can't find it right now, but he has these many anecdotes about what grad school life is like, with many examples from his own life. And these are things that I feel like if you are a STEM researcher, especially in the life sciences, you will definitely relate to a lot of what he's talking about, because it's very benchtop science. It's very much like delaying your thesis and what the impact of that might be for your family, because he talks about how he was engaged for the longest time and he kept saying to his fiance that he's gonna finish until eventually they just decided to set a date for their wedding because it seemed as though it's gonna happen quicker than the thesis defense itself. So it was really, really funny, and I think that if you just need a laugh about something relatable to you, if you're a STEM researcher, this is the book for you. Okay, so that's on my physical TBR. That's the books that I've finished. There's also this book, which is not exactly mine. I got this book from the book exchange on campus by Babe Walker. It's called White Girl Problems, and from the title I was just like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so funny, because I also read the blurb and it basically says that Babe Walker, center of the universe, is a painstakingly manicured white girl with an expensive smoothie habit, a proclivity for Louboutins, and mysterious mother she's never met, and approximately 50 bajillion Twitter followers. But her problems have landed her in shopping rehab. That's what happens when you spend over $246,000 in one afternoon at Barney's. Now she is decided to write her memoir revealing the gut-wrenching hurdles she's had to overcome in order to be perfect in every way, every day. Hurdles such as, I hate my horse, every job I've ever had is the worst job I've ever had. He's not a doctor, a lawyer, or a prince. I'll eat anything as long as it's gluten-free, dairy-free, low-carb, low-fat, low-calorie, sugar-free, and organic. So just listening to that blurb, I was like, okay, I want to read it. But honestly, I didn't quite get far. I'm on page 9 of this book. I still do want to read it. I don't think I'm gonna DNF it, as the BookTube girls say. I don't want to DNF it. I do want to read it until the end. But it's as shallow as the blurb says. I feel like I went into it thinking, oh, it's gonna be deeper than that. This is just meant to hook me and make me think it's gonna be funny. But I feel like so far it is as shallow as advertised. So I think I need to be in a certain mood to read that kind of thing. So this is an unfinished book from my physical TBR. I have listened to several books online on my Audible. So I had books on my Audible that I needed to finish that had been, downloaded and just never read. So for example, the 5 a.m. Club is a book that I've been trying to read since last year or so. I hate that book. I still do. I finished it, but I hate it. I would never recommend it to anyone. There are so many other self-help books that are actually great and more practical and less painful to listen to. I think the 5 a.m. Club was just so annoying to me. The things that are being taught in the book, I found that were basically repetitive of every other thing that I know from self-help books, and I do read a lot of self-help book. So I felt like it was overly simplistic, overly annoying, and yet somehow the author made it such that their writing style was trying too hard, I feel, in my opinion. It was trying too hard to go into the fable route, kind of like The Alchemist kind of thing, but less good. It was just not a good book for me. I understand a lot of people like the 5 a.m. Club, but I just feel like there are better ways of presenting the same thing, which, after reading the 5 a.m. Club, I really needed something good. So I reread Atomic Habits, which I read last year and I found to be one of the most helpful books ever, and I still would rate it a 5-star if I were to rate it. And that's the book that I would tell people about. 5 a.m. Club, I'm even embarrassed to say that I finished it. I kind of finished it because I had to, because it was past the timeline that I could return it to Amazon, to Audible rather. And also because I put myself on this ban so that I could read the things that I wasn't reading. Okay, so then back to Atomic Habits. I reread that. I still love it. It's by James Clear. It's a book that just tells you day to day how to view your life, the simple steps you can take to achieve the bigger things. That's the whole theme of the book, is big shifts are not caused by one-time big actions. They're caused by tiny movements that you can do every single day, and that can be applied to anything. So weight loss, weight gain, PhD thesis, just the idea of constantly showing up in little ways for yourself will lead you to big results. You don't have to think of this big result depending on one day of you working super hard. That's something that I constantly have to remind myself of, being a person that's not very good at consistency, but someone I tend to either do a lot or do nothing. You know what I mean? So I have to remind myself that there are certain things in the world that for me to learn or for me to acquire the skill, it's more like a constant practice sort of thing rather than a one-time do it all sort of thing. So that's why I felt like rereading it was really helpful for me. The last book that I read on Audible was Everything is Fucked by Mark Manson. As I speak like this, obviously I don't have the physical copy of these books, but I'm hoping I'm gonna be able to insert them into the frame, hopefully. But yeah, I was able to read that book. I had read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson when it had come out, and I had immediately just pre-ordered the second one before it even came out, and I was so excited for it because it was the sequel to one of the books that I felt was game changer, you know? But I was very disappointed, to be honest. And actually what happened was, let me tell you, I had the physical copy. Like I had pre-ordered and gotten the physical copy. And I read a few chapters in the beginning and I couldn't get into it. I just thought, okay, maybe I'm not in the right mood for this book. And then I happened to leave it at home. So when it came time that I felt like I needed to read this, I downloaded it on Audible. And so I just had it on my Audible library for the longest time. And so this time I said, okay, I'm on the book ban. I'm trying to read all the books that are in my library. Cool. I listened to it and I was very underwhelmed. I must say, Mark Manson, for me, you missed the mark here. I felt like the book, I'm not quite sure. So the title says, Everything is Fucked, a book about hope, right? So I thought it was kind of gonna go into the lines of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, where it's like, okay, if you detach from certain things and not take things personally, you'll live a happier life, this kind of thing. But it more so became an advocacy for atheism, which I don't subscribe to. And I felt as though it wasn't even a smart, it wasn't even a smart narrative of it either, because it was very anecdotal. It was very simplified. I felt reading the book that this was just, in a sense, an attack on organized religion without being very, very knowledgeable about some of the religions that they were talking about. The author talks about growing up, I guess, in a Christian household, and then he stopped going to church at some point. But then he talks about different religions, Christianity involved, and also others. And it's sort of just like how to create your own religion. Anyone can do this. Everything is stupid. Why do people follow this? It's almost like a clique or a cult. I don't know, it felt very wishy-washy, not well-researched kind of situation.
Isn't it just terrible?
I found myself unable to really connect with the book or really connect with the themes explored in the book. And for that reason, I felt like it wasn't for me. Kind of understood why I couldn't get into it in the physical book space as well. So I read it, I listened to it. I don't think I'll ever re-listen to it. But yeah, that was an underwhelming book that I read on Audible. Okay, so now we're done with all the books that I've read in my physical TBR, and my Audible has now been completed. I have read all the books that I currently had in my Japanese Audible. It turns out I still have a list of books that were in my German Audible, and amongst them is The Alchemist, which I've read in print when I was in high school, and I'm currently rereading The Alchemist via audio, and I'm absolutely loving it. And I was just so impressed by how much I had forgotten in this book. So The Alchemist is a book by Paulo Coelho, one of his most acclaimed books ever, and it follows this guy who is a shepherd who is in search of his treasure in the pyramids of Egypt, so it kind of follows him and who and what he meets along the way and what all these signs mean to him, but also in the general scheme of things, what life is and how to get your goals and, this kind of thing. So it was done really, really well. And I'm currently just like almost finished listening to it. There are about 5 more books in that library, which I'm aiming to finish between now and the end of the year, which should be fine. I will finish them. I don't struggle at all with audiobooks because I find that, I listen to them while doing other things. I'll be taking a trip soon, so I'm gonna listen to a lot on the plane. So it's gonna be fine. Like with audiobooks, I don't have a problem at all. Hello, lovely people of the internet. Wow, that is a mess. It's called White Girl Problems.